anytime you're brewing coffee by hand, it gives you a lot of control over the variables. First thing I'm going to do, get hot water. We're pulling hot water off of a tower here. Usually this comes out at about 195 by the time everything equalizes. So we've got to boost it up to that 200-degree mark after we actually get that water. We shoot for doing everything right around 200 degrees, and that just gives us kind of the sweet spot in terms of dissolving everything we want to dissolve, but not dirtying up the flavor at all. So I've got that heating right now. I'm going to weigh out my coffee. Right now for our Hario, we're using a 21-gram dose. I'm a huge believer in consistency, and especially like doing things by eye, it's really difficult to figure out what's actually going on. So as much as we're trying to measure everything in the process, we can say, all right, how am I arriving at this certain flavor balance? So then I'm going to grind this here. Then I don't know if you want to see as far as actual grind size, but that's about what we're working with there. We don't really have a very intelligent way about dialoguing about grind size. You know, it's not like there's a standard like, oh, we're going to use this many millimeter particle. So just really generally standard auto drip grinds. But as a more accurate way, you can kind of do pours, and if you're consistently slow or you're consistently fast, or if you just find that your flavor balance is off, that's when you start tweaking the grind one way or another. Predominantly, we're doing the Hario pour-over system, as well as a few different sizes for Chemexes. You can see I'm at 200 degrees here. So next thing I'm going to do, go ahead and pre-wet my filter. This is going to get rid of any papery flavors that might be in that filter. And it's also going to make sure that my ceramic and the vessel I'm brewing into are both nice and hot. Tap water is no good. Usually you at least want to filter out any chlorines or different like fluoride, anything that's going to have some kind of a chemical component to it. All right, so I'm going to tare my scale here. I'm going to make sure that my timer is zeroed out. Generally, you want some kind of gooseneck kettle that gives you a lot more precision during the pouring process. A lot of kettles out there are just kind of sloppy to work with, and it's frustrating when you're trying to be specific about different variables. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my pour. First thing we're going to do is pour a small amount of water over the grounds there. Give it a stir to make sure that everything's nice and evenly wet. Whole reason for doing this, fresh roasted coffee is a lot of CO2 gas built up from breaking down those sugars in there. And so we need to get rid of that gas before we're adding fresh water to it. If we were to start pouring right off the bat, that gas would be trying to get out at the same time that we're trying to get water inside, and we're going to end up with something that's not quite evenly extracted. A lot of people in their first learning, they're not maintaining an even level on the bed, so you get it kind of dipping up and down, and so then the coffee that's in the center is not being extracted at the same rate than stuff on the edges is. So usually we'll start our pour at the 30-second mark, and we're going to start going nice and easy right up front. Don't have to keep pouring constantly as long as this isn't starting to dip down at all. We want to make sure that as much as possible this is nice and evenly wet. And so while we're pouring here, you can see I'm watching my time, I'm watching my weight as well. We've actually got the Hario set up on a stand right now, so my weight is going to be the yields, how much brewed product is passing through there. So making sure that you're keeping everything at a constant level, and again, hopefully using scales and timers and trying to be consistent about that as well. But keeping everything at that same level of wetness throughout the entire process is really going to help the extraction be more even, get a better quality extraction, and usually that means a better flavor as well. While we're pouring, we'll usually start from the middle and start working our way towards the outside here. You can see I'm maintaining this kind of dome-like shape to the grounds. That's going to give me a slower flow rate. As soon as this dome starts flattening out, flow rate's going to increase, and it's going to be a little bit trickier for me to really keep up with the whole process. The coffee most people are used to is from an automatic drip, so it's comparable in some aspects. You know, it's essentially the same process. It's coffee that has fresh water passed through it. It's dissolving stuff, it's mixing together, it's going through a paper filter, so that's pulling out some of those oils and fine particles. The biggest difference, though, is usually most batch brewed coffee out there, the people who are actually making it, especially if it's in a diner or something like that, they don't know much about coffee. And so they're probably not working with the correct numbers in terms of coffee to water. They're not really dialing in their brew times much. So a lot of that out there just, it's not good coffee. It tends to be under extracted. You get a lot of stuff that's really light bodied. And so I guess the difference is tasting something that's actually at all the right numbers for the first time, and that's a totally different way to experience the coffee. And once we reach our final weight, gonna stir, make sure that everything's descending down nice and evenly there. And again, because I'm only measuring yield, I'm not actually measuring my brew water, I'm hoping that I'm gonna get up to about 300 grams right at 3 minutes. So you can see I'm moving a tad quick there. I guess we get a really wide range of reactions from people. There's a lot of people who are just curious and interested in the process. It's visually something very different. It's obviously something that takes a lot of attention to detail. And so we get a lot of people wanting to know, okay, why are you bothering to do this? Why are you putting so much work into coffee? A lot of people, when they taste it, they're really impressed and interested by the flavor balance. And I suppose we do get our mix of negative reactions there as well. A lot of those people aren't really looking for coffee with much flavor to it, though. So